Torah, and yesterday we did tzedakah. So we said also in tzedakah there's the path of the Eved Ivri, the Eved Kanani, Eved Ivri, and Ama Ivriya. So if you recall, who remembers what's the path of the Eved Kanani in tzedakah? You weren't here. Don't even guess.
No, I read it.
Oh, you read this one?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Eved Kanani in tzedakah. Who remembers? We just yesterday.
You gotta get double, man.
Was it Kabbalah's oath? He just does it because he's supposed to?
He does it because he's supposed to, basically.
He's the fear of the witness.
But we said basically, what's called lo lishma in terms of this is, we said like mitzvahs anashim lumada, mitzvahs done by rote, right? So this is just stop doing tzedakah for no reason, basically, because you were trained like that as a child. This is the Eved Kanani. You're not really into it, just sort of forcing yourself. And then we said, what's the Eved Ivri? Is again the idea that you have a chayis for it. You realize that it's your life. In other words, it gives you something to give tzedakah, right? You're sort of
Compelled.
yeah, because you know that mitzvahs is like the real life force. That's where life is found. So you're running towards the mitzvahs, but you're running towards the mitzvahs in such a way that they give you something. You're receiving from them. And the highest level is that you're, so to speak, giving. Like we said before, there's the chassan and the kala. Sometimes the Jew is the chassan and Hashem is the kala, and sometimes the other way around. Thanks, Levi. That's great.
Oh.
So, we didn't start yet. We're just reviewing. So, when it comes to the mitzvahs of tzedakah, we said that chukav mishpatav liYisrael. Hashem gives His mitzvahs to the Jewish people. So we said there's two ways of looking at this. He gives His mitzvahs, means that He does these mitzvahs, and we get sort of like the physical version of them, right? So that this is the idea of the Eved Ivri, that we want to nourish from the way the mitzvah is above. Right? So we want to sort of attach ourselves to the higher life. The other way of looking at it, He gives His mitzvahs to the Jewish people, is that, how are they called His mitzvahs? Only when we do them, they become His mitzvahs. Like the pasuk says in Shema, Vasisem osam, you shall do them. You can read it, Vasisem atem, you shall make them. Which means that when you do the mitzvah, you make Hashem do the mitzvah. He does a mitzvah as a result of you. Which means that basically you're drawing down Hashem into His mitzvah, which means you're connecting to the Hishtalshlus and sort of bringing the Orient Sof down into the world, which is called Hashem's mitzvah, and He only does that because you do a mitzvah. So that's the idea that you're giving to Hashem. You're the chas and He's the kala, and that's the Ama Ivriya. That's the level where you're sort of changing the mahus, as it were. You're able to change the reality because you're bringing more light into the world that was there before. You're not just receiving from above. Anyway, so that's in the realm of tzedakah, the whole system that we said. And then yesterday we went into the idea of the fourth level. Up until now we only spoke about those three levels, which is Asiya, Yitzira, and Bria. And then yesterday we talked about the Bas, the daughter. This is the world of Atzilus. And we went into the whole idea of Im Kabanim, Im Kavadim. Like we said on Yom Kippur, we have said, Hashem forgive us if we're like children or if we're like slaves. So the idea is children represents this bas, this level of the daughter. That's the level of the souls of Atzilus. We realize that this whole mimer is based on the mimer that we learned in Torah Or. So it says that in general Hashem planted into the bodies down here two different levels of souls. One is souls from the level called Atzilus, which are called the souls of man. The others are souls, godly souls, from the level of Bri, Yitzir, and Asiya. They're called the souls of animals. Again, not to be confused with the animal soul. And those souls of animals, they're also called slaves. So that's what it means, if like children, if like slaves, so you're saying if we're like a soul from Atzilus or if we're like a soul from Biyah. So the idea is that if a soul from Biyah, from the lower level of the slave, wants to reach up to the level of a soul of Atzilus, which is basically what we're calling Bitul mitsius completely, then he requires the acquisition from Moshe Rabbeinu. Ki sikna Eved Ivri. When you acquire a Jewish slave, it means Moshe, the soul of Atzilus, has to acquire the lower levels of souls and bring them up in order to have access to like the true level of divinity, which is this Bitul. Because we said that even the Ame Ivriya, which is the highest level of slave, she's still a mitsius. She still like has a self which is separate from Hashem. And we talked about the idea of like the baby before it turns into a boy or a girl. You know, it's like unformed. It can change its mahus, but it's still separate. It's still an entity separate from Hashem. Whereas the bas, the real idea of the level of Atzilus, you're completely one with God. You're godly, and this is again something that's not shaykh to the bria. It's not something shaykh to the creation. So to have any access to this whatsoever, it only is because Moshe Rabbeinu acquires you, which is basically, his kashrus to the Moshe of the generation as well. And this is what does this give you? It's what's called das, right? Because das is what's the differentiating factor between animal and man. So man has this thing called das, and what is das? So we said it's sort of, we spoke about it in the Maimer on Shabbos, it's like a sort of recognition of something, and we talked about the difference between seeing and hearing, if you remember. That seeing is something is before you in such a way that it's unmistakable, unshakable, it's like in your reality in a way that you can't ignore it and you can't take your mind off it. Whereas hearing, you can think about something, you can hear the news, but it doesn't affect you at all in the same way. It's like distant from you. And it doesn't like take over your whole existence. So the effect that something has upon a person when they merely hear about it versus seeing it is incomparable. So the idea of das really means like concentration. Like Adam yadas Chava, it says Adam knew Chava, which means they were stuck together, which means the idea of das is like maintaining a constant, continuous concentration on Elokus, that you never take your mind off it. Now that's not really able to be done by a regular person from a soul of Bri Yitzir Nasiya, because you get swept up in other things. Basically, as soon as someone like the phone rings or whatever it is, your mind goes on to the reality before you, and you take your mind off this intense concentration of like seeing Hashem before you, enlivening the world at every second. It's really something which is only shaykh to tzaddikim on the level of Atzilus. That's where their consciousness is. Their das is continuously plugged in to seeing God in every moment. So we're not there, but the idea is that they can feed us this das, and this is the idea of what we said yesterday, that nasati esev b'sadach. I'm not leave him techa, not to go through the whole thing again, because we said it a few times yesterday. But Moshe gives us the grass, which we said is chokhmah, into the field, which is malchus, to the animals, which is the animal souls, which means he's able to deliver to us his level of das and sort of and share it with us if we connect ourselves properly. Okay, so that's basically the review. We go inside, and we're saying that here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines from the bottom.
Well, all the children of Israel are a level of boss, right? No? Not necessarily.
Not at all. We're saying that basically none of them are. Only the few of the few of the few of the few, one in a generation. They're at the level. That's the neshamas of Atzilus. Everybody else, the level of either a Canaanite slave, a Hebrew slave, or a Hebrew slave woman. Slaves. All right. So whatever. Where? Yeah.
Even the Bimni is a Canaanite.
Even the Bain is a Canaanite slave.
So we're probably Canaanite slaves.
Yeah. So 5 lines from the bottom, 5 levels, 5 lines from the bottom. Kasher nimshach b'chinas das elyon. When this esev b'sadecha, this level of this higher chokhmah, this which is we're calling the das elyon, the recognition of Hashem, not just knowing there's a God, not even thinking about it a lot, but mamash seeing it before you all the time. This level of das elyon, when this is drawn down, when he shares that with the lower creatures. Azai nirgash gam ba'amata deya elyona shelamayla ayin. Then we can feel, not just know about it, we can actually feel for a moment that down below in this world, what's called the deya ha'elyona, the higher opinion. We talked about this also in a mimer not long ago. What's the higher opinion? We said there's a pasuk that says Keil Deos Havaya. Hashem is a God of knowledge, which we can also say opinions. There's 2 opinions. There's the opinion as things are above, and there's the opinion as things are below. Above, the opinion is that there's ayin miyesh, that the world is nothing from something. Because he's the real something, all there is godliness, the world is nothing. That's how things appear to him above. Down here it's yesh ma'ayin. We feel like we're something, and we call the above nothing. So this is why we don't have like a proper concentration on Hashem, because we're stuck with thinking that our existence is the reality. So the idea is that when there's a drawing down from this Das Elyon, then we feel down below the higher opinion. Could be momentarily, it could be all the time. It depends how connected we are. And it can create a Bitul mitsius. It could create a mamish completely losing yourself. We said on a small level, we're supposed to reach this level to some degree every day. This is the Shmona Esrei. This is the idea of learning Torah Lishma. This is the idea of giving tzedakah Lishma. All the things we said, that's the highest level. Bitul mitsius. And regarding this, it says, Asher tasim lifneihem. It says, Ki sikne eved ivri, or say, Eila Mishpatim, Asher tasim lifneihem. We're still stuck on last week's parsha for a second here. These are the statutes or the laws that you will place before them. So regarding this idea of drawing down the Bitul mitsius from above, it says, Asher tasim lifneihem, you shall place before them, Ki sikne eved ivri, when you acquire a Jewish slave. Dekai al Moshe, and this refers to Moshe, Shehu mamshich das elyon v'neshamas Yisrael. And this pasuk, when you will acquire a Jewish slave, as we already said, refers to Moshe Rabbeinu himself. It's not like a commandment to all Jews. It's talking in the Torah to Moshe. When you will acquire a Jewish slave, the level of the soul of Atzilus will acquire, i.e., give over his level to the slave level of souls from Bri, Yitzir, and Asiyah. And by doing this, he reveals the true inner soul, which is underneath your Eved Kanani. And that's what it says, Asher tasim lifneihem. Lifneihem means lipnimiuschem, like to your inwardness. He's going to, these are the statutes you're going to place lifneihem. Don't read it as before him, but lifneihem comes the word penimius. So this is what you're going to place. You're going to basically place this into their penimius. When you acquire this Jewish slave, you're going to bring out what the Jew really is, because each one of us inside actually stems from the world of Atzilus. It's just that we come through garments after garments after garments, and all that level of continuous das and concentration on Hashem is covered, but it's in there. Moshe is not inventing it in us or making something new. He's just revealing what the Yid already is. So that's what he says. He reveals the penimius of the neshama, lifneihem, the penimiuschem. V'zeu mipnei it's because he acquires us. Or, here we go, this is the whole mimer that we learned together. So we said the word Eved Ivri, okay, the Jewish slave, the word Ivri also is a throwback to a different concept of Ivri, right, which is Be'ever Hanar. Avram is also called, why are Jewish people called Ivri in general? Ivri, the other side of the river, right? So the idea is that Eved Ivri comes to the word Be'ever Hanar, from the other side of the river, Yashva Avosechem. That's where our fathers dwelt. That's why in general they were called Ivri. And what does it mean, the other side of the river? It's the shurish of the neshama. The root of the soul. We talked about this before, that basically there's something called the Yam, the splitting of the Yam Suf. That's Malchus. The sea is called Malchus, and the river is called Bina. We talked about in the time of the splitting of the sea, in Egypt, it was only the splitting of the sea. But in the future, it's going to be that the river is going to split. And the whole idea of splitting the sea is that it allows you to go past Malchus, because Malchus is the sea. It opens up, and you can go up into Zah. You can go up into the higher level of Atzilus. And that became available. When the sea split, it sort of opened up a higher level of divinity that was able to now come through this split sea. But in the future, it says the river is going to split. What's the river? It's the level above. It's the next sort of stage. It's Bina. And when Bina splits, what's on the Ever Hanar, the other side of the river, is Chokhmah. And that's where the source of the Jewish soul is. The source of the Jewish soul comes from Chokhmah Vatzilus. So this is the idea of the Eved Ivri, that the Jewish slave is really this idea who's on the other side of the river. It's referring to the source of the Jewish soul. Moshe is the one who draws forth and reveals this source of your soul that you have in you, and he brings it out. He like shows what you're really made of. So automatically, it's not like you have to arrive at this level of Bitul mitsius, because through your own avoda it would be very difficult, basically. But you already have it. You just have to sort of get in touch with yourself, and for that you need a hand. You need to be acquired by Moshe. And that's what it means. These are the Mishpatim that you shall place before them when you acquire a Jewish slave. Eila Mishpatim. These are the Mishpatim Shebetorah. Hem bechines Evid Kanani, Evid Ivri, Ba'ama Ivriya, Shemefartim Lahalan. So these Mishpatim that are in the Torah, which is the 3 levels of slaves, which are right after this pasuk, which are delineated. But since the whole purpose of the avodah is to one day arrive at this bitul mitsius, that's why it says you shall place before them. In other words, that it's saying this is the general level of where a Jewish soul could arise, the 3 levels of the slave. But since the ultimate purpose of your sojourn here is to reach to this penimius bitul, therefore it starts off by saying you shall place before them when you acquire a Jewish slave, i.e. you will unlock their penimius, lifneihem, lipnimiuschem, when you acquire a Jewish slave, because the Jewish slave is the basic mishpatim of the Torah. That's basically how you run your life according to the Torah rules. Everyone can do the Torah shalol lishma. You can go to the level of stam doing it, or you can go to the level of lishma. Those are things which more or less in your potential as a bria, as a nivra, as a creation. But since the purpose is to reach this level of bitul mitsius, therefore it starts out that these are the laws, but kisikna eved ivri, that ultimately you're going to have to acquire an eved ivri, telling to Moshe to put it into our penimius and bring us up to this level. Which is the Hamshachas Das Elyon Gila B'chines Chayin Yechida. That's the Das Elyon that Moshe gives us, the level of Chayin Yechida, as we said before, that refers to the world of Atzilus, which Moshe bears. He's giving us like a taste of our own Chayin Yechida, Sheb'chines Zu Me'ira B'chol HaMadrega, so that this level will shine throughout all the other levels. Sheme'ira Gam B'chines Evid Kanani. You can get this highest level to shine even into the simplest avoda that you do on the level of Eved Kanani. V'davka az naisis gam avoda shemitzad b'chines naran kedeboy l'mahavi. And the idea is that then even your lower levels of your soul are functioning at their highest ability. In other words, there's the idea that you don't just want to reach the Chai and Yechid and go into a state of Bitul Metzias, so then you're sort of like a non-entity. You want to reach that level and then draw that level out into all the Seder Ishtalshlus, so that you still have a Seichel, you still have Midos, you still have Machshava Dibur Maisa, you still have like your Evid Kanani, etc., all in place, but they're now shining at the level of Bitul Metzias. In other words, in general, he sort of throws in like a deep topic at the end here, but the notion is that ultimately you don't want to just knock out the concept of the Seder Ishtalshlus by going up above the worlds and leaving it all behind and sort of becoming Bitul Metzias Kpshuto, because Hashem created the Seder Ishtalshlus. He created nature, so to speak, for a reason. Even though nature tends to conceal Hashem, and so long as you're stuck in the boundaries of nature, you can't really taste the true Penimius of Hashem. Nonetheless, the idea is not to leave nature behind, but to attach yourself to this higher than nature and see it in nature. In other words, and make nature act in accordance with this higher level. Sort of bend nature to follow the rules of a calling which is higher than nature. So that's the idea of reaching this level and then drawing it back down into the lower levels of your soul, the slave levels of your soul. And this, Levi was mentioning yesterday, this is the idea of the going down the ladder of tefillah. The whole mimer was about going up and reaching the Shemona Esrei, reaching a bitul b'metzias, but davening's not over yet. Then the idea is you want to come down and finish davening, having reached the level of the bitul b'metzias. You bring that level, so to speak, and permeate the mind, then permeate the heart, and then permeate your maisa with this level of the bas. Okay. Anyway.
Is there actually a middle point in the Shemona Esrei?
No, Shemona Esrei itself is the world of Atzilus. So after that, after Shemona Esrei is when you start going down to Bria again. Then is the end, but it starts off like you go three stages up, and then you go 3 stages down.
I have a question, a little bit about this. Moshe was coming from such a high level to bring us and feed us the grass. But when he was a median for 40 years, when he like a general.
Yeah.
So that was just hidden because it didn't come out, obviously.
Say it again. I didn't understand the question.
Okay, Moshe, without, he says, Moshe, he feeds us the grass. He's the one that gives us the higher understanding. Without him, we can't really know it.
Yeah.
So, but he was, before he went to Egypt, he was in Median for 40 years. He was a shepherd. He also was a general for 40 years.
Okay.
So was all that like dormant? I mean, it didn't.
It wasn't dormant in Moshe, but he didn't share it with us yet. That's why there was no Geula. We were in Mitzrayim. Because that's what Mitzrayim is. It's like it's being stuck in yourself. Until Moshe came back, Moshe was born with it.
But he wasn't even with us.
Huh?
He was with the Midianites.
That's what I'm saying. We were stuck in Mitzrayim because he wasn't with us. That's what I'm trying to say. When Moshe's not feeding this thing to you, you're in Mitzrayim.
Okay.
But Moshe never needed to acquire it. Moshe was born with it.
Okay.
We pass these around. We're going to start a new mimer. Sorry, it's a little tricky to finish a mimer and like that, but okay. Okay, so